Happy 100th birthday, FRE!
Whoa, that's even older than you, Caleb.
I'm only a few years older than you, Elena. Calm down.
Like Caleb said, I'm Elena Poulin, he is Caleb Stair, and this is FRE Lunch,
the official podcast of the Food and Resource Economics Department at the University of Florida.
This season is all about our greatest hits. Well, FRE's greatest hits.
It's part of a broad effort to showcase all the cool things FRE has done and is doing.
And with that, on with the episode.
From cattle to conservation, today's episode is all about agricultural conservation easement programs.
That's right. Picture where our natural resources are. Rows of tomatoes, acres of timber, and tons of Texas longhorns.
Do we have those here?
I don't know, but Angus didn't really have the same alliteration.
Anyway, whatever type of place you pictured probably wasn't sitting on concrete. However, as more folks move to Florida, we have to find more places to put them.
And the catch-22 is that we still have to feed them.
These are the kinds of tough decisions that Florida is grappling with right now.
One possible path moving forward is using different programs to preserve our productive land. There are many options to do this while still growing our state.
The Agricultural Conservation Easement Program does this with the added benefit of monetary incentives.
To better explain the details of these programs, we are joined by two colleagues from the Food and Resource Economics Department here at UF.
Our first guest is Dr. Nathan Palardy. You may remember him from our beer episode.
My name is Nathan Palardy. I'm an assistant professor and state extension specialist. I specialize in state and local government with an emphasis on policy and community economic development.
Our other guest is Kimberly Miranda-Ramos, a senior in FRE who is working with Dr. Palardy on her undergraduate honors thesis. She's also a longtime listener and first-time guest.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly Miranda-Ramos, and I'm a senior at the University of Florida studying food and resource economics on the international track, and I'm currently minoring in education studies as well as data analytics and applied economics.
Like all FRE students interested in research, Kimberly came to see me, the undergraduate honors and research coordinator who is trustworthy, all-knowing, charismatic.
Caleb, I don't think that's exactly what happened.
All right, fine. The truth is she started out her journey in research by researching our professors.
And so I went onto the FRE department website and I jotted some notes down on some of the professors that align with my interest. And Dr. Palardy was one of the top professors. And so I just showed up at his office one day, had a chat. I vibed with him. I also asked for some recommendations from other professors.
And from there on out, the rest was history.
I thought we were an economics department.
I started working with him in the summer of 2025 up until fall of 2025 as his research assistant. He became my honor thesis advisor. And yeah, it's been a great time researching with him. And I probably would say it's one of my top learning experiences in my undergraduate years.
With Kimberly already being interested in sustainability and agriculture and the role that local governments can play, this is a research pairing that made perfect sense.
I mean, I've always been interested in sustainability and conservation efforts as a kid, but also ever since coming to college and periodically going back home every 3 to 4 months, I've seen increase in commercial development on ag land. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to research how development is currently affecting agricultural land in Florida.
After all, as an extension economist, Dr. Palardy has created a guide that provides Florida farmers and ranchers with an overview of agricultural conservation easement programs available to Florida farmers and work closely with a variety of stakeholders on this topic.
I've also spoken at land use workshops with county commissioners and the general public about easement programs and how they can help prevent the conversion of agricultural land to non-agricultural uses. And I've also spoken with landowners on how they can apply to various programs that are available. Finally, I've worked directly with county governments to create their own county-level agricultural conservation easement programs.
But let's backtrack. What exactly is a conservation easement program, and how do they work?
An easement separates the development rights from ownership of the land. So a landowner is selling their right to, say, subdivide the property and sell it as residential development.
In exchange, the landowner receives compensation, either in the form of a direct payment or a tax break for the land. Meanwhile, the property owner can continue to use it as long as the land remains farmland, ensuring that our rural lands can stay protected for many years to come.
So the landowner continues to own and manage the property. What they are selling is just the right to develop the land. So the right to, say, build a subdivision or build a commercial property. They still own the land. What they are selling is just the right to develop it beyond its current agricultural use.
These programs do more than just preserve our rural lands. They also encourage thoughtful growth.
The primary goal is to protect agricultural land, but a secondary goal can be to channel development into areas where it is most cost effective and direct it away from areas where local communities want to preserve their agriculture.
The prevalence of these types of programs can vary greatly depending on where you live.
However, in addition to federal level programs, Florida has many more localized options available at both the state and even county level.
So in Florida, we are fortunate to have a lot of support at the state level for agricultural conservation. The largest agricultural conservation easement program in the state is the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program, which is run by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. To date, this program protects over 230,000 acres of working agricultural land.
This Rural and Family Lands Protection Program was also the subject of Kimberly's undergraduate thesis.
Yeah, so my undergrad research focuses on the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program, which, as Dr. Palardy mentioned earlier, is one of Florida's primary agriculture conservation easement programs. And what I'm currently looking at are what types of land uses are currently being protected under the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program.
Obviously, these programs don't just exist in Florida. And while there are lots of programs available, there's a lack of knowledge concerning what lands tend to be selected for the programs.
And the reason we kind of got into this is because there is a big research gap in the literature in terms of what types of land uses conservation easement programs protect across like the United States. So it's not just like a Florida thing.
Through this project, Kimberly and Dr. Palardy were able to identify areas where the Rural and Family Land Protection Act excels, such as in the protection of grazing land, which accounts for the largest portion of Florida ag land by acreage.
So Kimberly has done an amazing job looking at this topic and really has created some of the first research that looks at the types of agricultural land that are protected by these programs.
They also identified key opportunities where we can develop complementary policies and strategies that can direct future conservation efforts.
We also identify opportunities to develop complementary policies and strategies to target agricultural land uses that are not as prevalent in the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program. This can help protect the full spectrum of agricultural land uses present in the state of Florida.
Now, as with all research, it is rarely a smooth process.
So one of the most challenging parts of the research process has definitely been, I would say that data analysis part, in the sense of like intersecting all this parcel data. So like the geospatial mapping, it was like a big issue that I ran into for a couple weeks. And it was just like going into the library early mornings and trying to figure this out. Another issue that we ran into with the parcel data is that when we were overlapping them, we didn't want to like double count acres or like other land use types. So it was just like going back and like making sure that we had accurate information, accurate data as well.
Kimberly even presented this research at the Southern Regional Science Association and received some very valuable feedback.
I know a question that came up a lot was like, why does the program tend to protect grazing land more than other land use types? And so I think like emphasizing that changed like the emphasis and like the introduction of my honor thesis on like the different matrices that different agriculture conservation programs use. So like some conservation easement programs will decide to protect the land use types based on a couple characteristics such as like soil quality, or if a land use type is facing more development pressure, or like parcel size. So like emphasizing that and like making that clear in my honors thesis.
Now, why does Florida in particular need these programs? Are there challenges or threats that rural lands are facing that is somewhat driving the development of these programs?
So that's a really good question. Rural lands throughout the Southeast, and in Florida especially, are facing an incredible amount of development pressure, especially those located adjacent to expanding urban and suburban areas. State and local governments are pursuing strategies to manage growth in a way that promotes economic development without trading rural identity or sacrificing the agricultural sector of their economy.
Now, while easements are one way to protect agricultural land from development, as economists, one thing we are always concerned about is weighing the potential costs and benefits of any policy decision made.
So that's a really important question to answer. One of the key benefits of these programs from a public policy perspective is that because the land remains in private ownership, it stays on tax rolls and does not cost taxpayers anything for the maintenance or upkeep of these properties. Additionally, because the land continues to be productive in agriculture, it remains a source of jobs and contributes to the local economy. The only major cost to the public is the initial acquisition of the easement, which, because it is less than fee, meaning you're not actually acquiring the property, you're only acquiring the development rights, it's far cheaper than an outright purchase of the land.
Another benefit of these types of programs is that by keeping the land in agriculture and the costs of management low, it remains revenue positive for the county.
So in terms of public benefits, agricultural land is revenue positive, while residential land is revenue negative on average for county governments. What that means is that agricultural land generates more in tax revenue for county governments than it costs in terms of providing services, such as roads, utilities, sewage, all of these services that county governments provide.
Being revenue positive is what you could call a direct benefit. This means tangible, immediate, and measurable positive outcomes from an action. In this case, it's cheaper.
Another important consideration is the hidden benefits that a policy decision might have that could be less obvious.
Isn't that what hidden means?
Additionally, agricultural conservation easements can help maintain a viable agricultural economy that supports local jobs, businesses, and food systems by making sure that a critical mass of land remains in agricultural production, and this can have local multiplier effects. Agricultural land also provides services that improve quality of life that would be difficult or expensive to replace. This includes flood mitigation, open space, improving air quality. Finally, easements can help preserve the agricultural heritage of communities by ensuring that land in the community stays in agriculture.
So, for a lot of individuals who are listening to this right now, this may be the first time they have heard about a conservation easement program. For our listeners, let's say they've listened to this podcast for roughly the last 15 minutes. What is that one big key takeaway you would want to leave them with?
I would say that agricultural land is a scarce resource, and once it is converted to non-agricultural uses, it almost never returns to agriculture. That is why it is critical to keep working land in agriculture, and agricultural conservation easements should be part of state and local government's comprehensive strategy for protecting and conserving agricultural land.
So to conclude, as populations grow, the demand for land increases, and the decisions being made by state and local government are critical to what our landscape will look like in the future.
For our listeners, the next time you have a long drive ahead of you, just like Kimberly, perhaps you might consider the landscape around you and how it has changed over time.
And for our students specifically, Kimberly also had some great advice for anyone thinking about getting into undergraduate research.
Yeah, so one of the pieces of advice I have is to really big emphasis on like who you choose your advisor to be. If you're interested in research, it could be pretty taxing sometimes in terms of time. It's a great time commitment. And so having an advisor that understands that you're involved in other things, that you are also taking a bunch of exams, that classes are still exist, and like you still have a personal life as well. You want an advisor that understands that and is patient and actually works and communicates with you. So big emphasis on picking the right advisor.
While these research projects can be a lot of work, they also serve as a great opportunity for our students to explore career paths available to them after graduation, either in academia or industry.
Firstly, I knew I was interested in research, like just based off like this data analysis course I took and like the projects we did in there. We did a bunch of data analysis and like wrote those reports. I realized that's why I was interested in research. And so like doing research with Dr. Palardy, I was like, okay, like this is set. Like I definitely want to go into like government work where I can do research.
Another side benefit of our podcast is that it affords students an opportunity to distribute their research more broadly than just as a thesis or a publication.
It also gives them practice communicating with a non-economist audience about these important issues that affect us all.
We hope you enjoy learning about student research like Kimberly's as much as we enjoy having the opportunity to share it.
And for those of you interested in learning more about any of the topics discussed today, or the opportunities for undergraduate research available through the FRE department, we will include links in the episode description below.
If you've made it this far, you've finished the entire episode, and we thank you for that. Tune in next time for more food for thought. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of FRE Lunch. We hope you'll come back again for seconds.